Welcome back, welcome back. This week's topic is don't bring last year's baggage into the new year. One of the most awesome parts of this time of the year is that we get the ability to make a fresh start. We get the ability to start again. We can leave the past in the rearview mirror and we can make a fresh start. Unfortunately, so often what ends up happening is that we continue right from where we left off. We don't make a fresh start. We continue right where we ended off the last year. We start the new year right from where we left off. It's nothing but a continuation. Even when we tell ourselves that there's a new beginning happening right now, so often we have that cynical voice in the back of our head, the cynical voice in the back of our mind that's whispering to us and telling us, here you are, right back to where you started from. Here you are, back at the beginning. Another year went by. Again, you're telling yourself that this year is going to be different. What did you really gain? You're back at the beginning. You're back to where you started from. There's an important idea that we have to realize, and that is that starting over does not mean that we're back at the beginning. It's a starting over does not mean that we're back to where we started from. We could start over from a place different than where we started from. We could start over from a higher place. I was watching my kids play red light, green light. And if the person that's it sees somebody moving, they got to go back to where they started from. They lose all their gains. They're right back to where they started from. Tshuva is not a game of red light, green light. We do not lose anything that we've gained. We're not back to where we started from. Beginning is rashis. Rashis is the beginning. And we find there are two concepts of rashis that the Zohar, that the Sfarim tell us about. There's one rashis where it says, Bereshis Bishvil Yisrael Shenikra Rashis, that we find that the Yidden, the Bnei Yisrael, are called rashis. And then there's another rashis that we find, Rashis Goyim Amalek. Perhaps the polar opposite of what the Bnei Yisrael are. There's another rashis that refers to Amalek. What's the rashis, the beginning, referring to the Bnei Yisrael? And what's the rashis, the beginning, referring to Amalek? By Amalek, it says Asher Karacha Baderech, which the Mefarshim tell us comes from the lashon of kar, a lashon of cooling off. What is Amalek? Amalek cools off the passion. Amalek takes that passion and it cools it off. Amalek is the cynical voice inside of you telling you you're right back to where you started from. What did you gain? What's the rashis by Yisrael? When did the Bnei Yisrael get the name Yisrael? That was when Yaakov Avinu was struggling with the Malach. The Malach named Yaakov Avinu Yisrael Kisarisa because of the struggle that Yaakov Avinu had with the Malach. That struggle is how we earn the name Yisrael. We're put in this world to struggle. And when we struggle, even if ultimately we lose, but the struggle itself is nitzchias, the struggle itself is eternal. Anything that we've done right over the past year, that's nitzchias. That's eternity. That's eternal, and nobody and nothing can take that away from us. Every bit of the struggle that we had with our Yetzer Hara in the last year, every good thing that we did in the past year, even if ultimately we lost the battle, but we struggled with the Yetzer Hara, that's what we're here for. Not to tap out of the fight, but to struggle with the Yetzer Hara. That's nitzchias, that's eternity that cannot be taken away from us. We have the opportunity right now to make a fresh start, but there's a choice in front of us. We can close the previous chapter and start a new one, or we can continue right where we left off. But the greatest authors, when you have a book that's a bestseller, it's not predictable. There's going to be a plot twist. The plot changes. If we want to make our story incredible, now is the perfect time for a plot twist. The Nesiv Shalom says that we all know that right now the Sifrei Tzadikim, the Sifrei Rishonim, the Sifrei Chaim, Sifrei Mavis are open in front of us. The books of the righteous, the book of the wicked, the book of life, it's all written right now. Says the Nesiv Shalom, so often the perspective that we have when we think about the Sifrei Chaim open in front of us, the book of life open in front of us, the book of the Tzadikim, the book of the Rishonim open in front of us, so often the perspective that we have is in the past. We were written into the book of righteous, or we were written, God forbid, in the book of the wicked, in the book of the Rishayim. And what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to change that. We're trying to get ourselves written into the next place. Says the Nesiv Shalom, that's the wrong perspective to have. Says the Nesiv Shalom, the perspective that we should have is that right now the books are open and we are choosing which book we're going to get written into. We can choose that we want to be written into the book of the Tzaddikim, the book of the righteous, or we can choose we're going to be written in the book of the Rishayim or the Beinanim, the average people, or God forbid the wicked people. But that there's a choice in front of us right now. Which book do we want to get written into? The story of our lives has only been written up until now. We get to choose how the rest of our life is going to be. We get to choose how the rest of our story is going to be. We can listen to that cynical voice in our head saying that we're right back to where we started from. We didn't make any progress, and why will this year be any different? Or we can start realizing that we're starting again, but from a higher plane. That our struggle was not for naught. That we have the opportunity to make a fresh start, that we can write a new chapter to our story. Today is the first day to the rest of our lives.